I was muted. So sorry about that. Hello, 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 people. Welcome back to another episode of the USL show. I am no longer muted, and it is just me today. In just a little bit, we're going to be joined by current sitting head coach Rob Vincent of the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, USL champion Rob Vincent. But we're going to kind of wait for him to go on and hop on with us. But until then, we have a little bit to cover. And yes, it is just a solo shot, oh my goodness, solo show tonight. So, this as soon as this interview is over, we might hit a couple talking points and then we'll go on. But I want to, of course, thank our amazing patrons for everything that you do for us. Seriously, cannot go understated or overstated. Doug Brooks, Stephen Howard, John's landlord, Don Garber, David Horn, Josh, Dylan Reed, William Land, Sandy Lesser, Ryan Smelter, Matt Capiel, Andrew Towsley, Alba Hedgehog, Kunal Patel, MOS, NF Fresh 30, Tim Knox, Rion Lacara, Jeremy Churchman, Alberto Aguilar, Noah Telford, Michael Fuchs, John Fuller, Christopher Cohn, Frank Anthony, and John Hunt. Thank you so much for helping us do what we do. We greatly appreciate you. So we have a good bit of stuff to kind of cover, and the things that have been kind of breaking the internet. So first, we're not going to get into a full CBA conversation. However, ESPN is currently reporting that the league has offered a 55K minimum salary for this year's CBA. However, that has been the proposal for the Division One league, as per the reporting of Jeff Carlisle, which is really important distinction here, that this is not a current CBA conversation, that this $55,000 is for Division One, according to Carlisle. I find this absolutely fascinating, considering they are in the talks of the current championship negotiations, but that's where they are with Division One. And if we go back to an interview that we did a long time with Betsy Howe, where she mentioned that the Super League would share the same CBA as Division One, or at the time Division Two. She said that the men's championship would have the same CBA as the USL Super League, because at the time the Super League was a Division Two league. Well, with that, they were kind of saying that the men and women would be getting equal pay. The Super League still does not have a CBA yet. So they are working on that. And if this is the CBA where they are saying that in year one, it'd be 55,000, year two, 60,000, year three, 65,000, and year four, it'd be 70,000. That's salary only. Doesn't include any other, doesn't include anything else that comes with this. That like housing or anything like that. That's really fascinating. And I'm kind of thinking about this as obviously someone who works, right? And a first year teacher, that's what I do for a living, is teach. In Alabama makes about $35,000 a year. And when you kind of think of it those terms, it's like, okay, that's not awful pay. But when you're comparing this to, say, their direct competitor in MLS, and they can say we're not competing, yes, they are. It's really still a ways away. And this is still not even getting into the championship side of these conversations. So I'm fascinated by this. I don't know if the league is currently saying that, hey, we'll get your championship thing done once Division One is done. I don't know if that's the point, because even in this article by Carlisle, which you should read the ESPN article, both the USL and the USLPA declined to comment, which I think is just fascinating, considering the kind of posturing they have been doing. There's also been some other news that came out. If you like sources like someone, say, John Morrissey or Tom Bogert, which the Lexington SC has announced that Arturo Ordonez is joining Lexington SC, but it was also announced on a Bogert bomb that Aaron Malloy is going to be joining Lexington SC, which I think is just fascinating. Now, if you're someone who is uh into soccer, into the League One world, we have seen this before with Lexington. They went and bought every good player that you can think of, and then it did not go well for them in League One. Now we are seeing them have a little bit more stability, and they showed a lot of promise under Terry Boss um, after they finally got a little bit of solidity in their lineup decisions because they just kept buying people and it didn't happen. It didn't go through, or it didn't work. I am going to be fascinated to see how this works, especially as Lexington just hired a new coach because they got rid of Coach Terry Boss. They announced, and I'm going to mess up his name, and I'm so sorry. Kimura, they have Kosuke Kimura, who is the current women's coach, or sorry, Masaki Himi. So sorry. Masaki Himi. I am so sorry. He is moving over from the Super League side as Kimura is stepping up from the assistant role. It's really confusing. Basically, they're moving the Super League coach over to the championship side. And Masaki is Himi. He is a fantastic coach, has been for a long time, but I find this move to be really interesting. There were sources going around that they were in on Danny Cruz, which would be the second straight year that they have tried to get Danny Cruz. They were also in on Ben Pierman, which Ben Pierman has allegedly just signed a brand new 2-year contract. So they take Hemi from the Super League side, who the Super League side is flying right now. And it is really interesting to see how that's going to shake things up. Now, you have a Kimura who is the assistant coach, now the head coach. We're going to see how that works out. We're going to see if that's going to change anything. But for me, I think that this is kind of scummy of Lexington, if I'm being really honest with you. For me, I look at what Lexington is doing, and they have a great Super League side. They are sitting top in the Super League right now by 1 point, yes, with expansion side Sporting Jacks, who we have not talked about near enough, but we should. Lexington is sitting in first, and they have great players. They have a great thing going, and they move the women's coach over to the men's coach. And yeah, if they were on the same schedule and one's on the European schedule, one's on the men's schedule, it's one thing. But this would not happen the other way around. If Lexington SC men's side were to be in first place, winning the league, doing their thing, and they suddenly moved their coach over to the Super League side, that just would not happen. That just would not happen. If Terry Boss was sitting at the top of the league, they would not move him to the Super League side in the middle of the championship season. And to me, it's just blatantly treating the women's side like a lesser product. Now, maybe this was in the works for a long time and this was always the plan. I don't think so, but maybe this was always the plan and this is what they were going for and whatever. But still, way to treat this like a lesser product. You are saying our men's side is more important. We would rather have a coach right now for the preseason than to have our coach who's leading our women's side to being the best team in the league. Yes, they have had 2 draws in the last 2 games, but that does not change the fact that they have been the best team that this league has to offer. I just find it very Very messed up. Very messed up. Got a comment in the chat. Maybe they have no budget left after all the player moves. Horse money knows no ends. If you know me, uh, their horse money is just crazy. um, I just find it very interesting. Now, if you are a Lexington fan who maybe doesn't follow the Lexington women's side, or maybe you're just a USL championship fan who doesn't follow what's going on the Lexington side or follow the Super League side, you should. Right now, Lexington has been going out with this 4-4-2. At least they have been just a little bit, but they also have the kind of the players to do this. You have players like Mackenzie Weiner over on the left side, Amina Ekic over on the right hand side, and you have Addie McCain and Catherine Berry as your two forwards up top. You can do a whole lot with that. And Addie McCain kind of treats herself as like a false nine or as a number 10. So if we're going to assume that he's going to take the same system over, you can expect something that looks more like a 4-2-3-1, and you're going to have wingers going up and doing their thing. You're going to have a second striker dropping in deep like a number 10. But I would also say don't take too much from the Super League side of this, because they have the most talented team in the league. Sporting Jack's kind of barring because they are super like they are just attacking like crazy, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. But maybe they can build a similar kind of team on the men's side as they are the women's side. It's going to be really interesting to see. Frank Dolan says, does Lads protocol extend to Lexington? Maybe if they do it again this year. Yes. Yes. What was Hemi's style of play as an interim of New Mexico? I would be talking out of my tail if I told you I remembered. I just don't remember how he played when he was at New Mexico, just to be completely honest with you. But speaking of a New Mexico man, Greenville gets a new general manager, and it is one of Zach Prince. Now, Zach Prince was formerly with New Mexico, and he moves up to DC United as an assistant coach, and he is a local product. He is a local guy, and Prince finds his way to being the general manager and sporting director of both the Greenville Liberty and the Triumph. I think that's an important distinction here. I think that when you are looking at what the Liberty are doing and what the Triumph are doing, and the Liberty are the W League team, they are building a stadium right now for the Greenville Triumph. There's always updates being posted on the subreddits and all that kind of stuff. This is a very clear move that I think that too many green teams, that Greenville is making their way up to Super League soon. Yes, they have a technical director they've always had a technical director for the Liberty, but a guy like Zach Prince, who has the pedigree that he has, being a local guy as he does, someone tells me they wouldn't bring a guy like him in unless they wanted him to really go after this on the women's side as well. Now, maybe this is also just saying, hey, he's going to move the Triumph up to the championship, and then the Super League is just going to be what they're doing, or they'll maybe look at the Super League down the line. That'll be interesting to see. But that was something that popped up to me that I thought was fascinating. We also got a message into chat here about the new GM president of El Paso Locomotive. Yes, I am interested. Where Mike DeGulio, this is where I really we should love to have Phil on tonight. But the El Paso picks up the former Monterey Bay man, where they were chanting, "Get him out of our club," like making protest of "Get this man out of our club." Pretty sure he was the one that made this awful deal of the um oh gosh, if we make the playoffs, you get your tickets back or you get your season ticket money back. Is that what it was? Can someone correct me if I'm wrong here? But if we don't make the playoffs, you get some kind of money back was the deal. And then they didn't make the playoffs. They were abysmal after Campuzano just stopped standing on his head. And it's they were awful. So I don't know. I think it's fascinating from El Paso, who continues to prove, yes, okay, if they didn't make the playoffs, it was a 20% rebate. Crazy. Um, just incredible optics from El Paso as they continue just to step on rakes and hit themselves in the face over and over and over again. I think it's interesting. They also lose Andy Cabrera to Charleston, where Andy Cabrera finally gets to play for someone in the U.S. that is not his dad, Wilmer Cabrera. He makes his way over to Charleston, which you just know that Ben Pierman's just going to make him a super stud. Um, there was some other news that happened, recently, but we can get to that in just a little bit because after, we are done talking to Mr. Rob Vincent, we are going to, talk a little bit US Open Cup because I have just some thoughts on the matter, but that will be quite interesting to see what everybody in the chat thinks about. So that'll be quite interesting to go through. But without any further ado, I am really excited to welcome on our guest of the night. We are talking to the Liverpool native, but he did grow up in the Everton Academy on the blue side, and then makes his way through college, finds himself through Pittsburgh, has some magical moments, DC United, then makes his way back to Pittsburgh one last time. And now we can officially call him USL champion, Mr. Rob Vincent. Rob, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Well, how has the USL champion, does that feel real to you yet?
Yeah, it's certainly taken a little bit of getting used to. It's been just a crazy 7, 8 weeks. So yeah, it is still a little bit strange, but yeah, it's starting to slowly sink in.
Rob, you were the interim coach going through this run. After October 10th, you were named as the head coach at basically the standing in place coach. And from there, Pittsburgh just looked fantastic under your care, where the midfield was flowing, the attack was going, and defensively, it was even better than before. For you, what was kind of the thought process in taking over mid-season?
Yes, I think we had a really solid defensive base that we knew could carry us through to the end of the season. Very much about just trying to play our best soccer in those last few games, try and find the home playoff game, and yeah, just kind of take it one game at a time.
So one thing we really noticed was guys like Danny Griffin, who was who's captain of the club. He just looked so free in the midfield and was just absolutely everywhere. Was that something that you kind of thought about as you took over, of just kind of let that the two midfielders in that base just kind of move around, do as they want to creatively, or was there something else? I think we might have lost Rob for just a second, so I'm going to kind of give him a quick minute to come back, but we will get back to that interview very shortly. I was very impressed with what Rob Vincent was able to do in setting up the midfield and whatnot. It was very fun. It was very the if you did not watch the games, you would not understand just how creative this team was. So I am really excited to see how they begin to expand on that going forward. Now, we had a question in chat, which is Rob Vincent the new permanent head coach? It has not been announced as such yet, so we will see on that. But I mean, talk about it, a good interview to have along the way, winning the USL Championship. Rob, welcome back.
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good.
I think I'm good now. Yeah.
No problem. But one thing before we kind of lost you for a minute, one thing that we noticed on here was guys like Danny Griffin were able to work a lot more creatively in that midfield. Was that something that you have been kind of seeing from the assistant seat?
Yeah. I mean, Danny naturally likes to jump higher anyway. He's got a lot of energy. So he does a really good job of defending in front of the back line, but he also has the energy to go and jump and get in the box. We saw that at times this season, getting on the end of crosses, grabbing himself a few extra goals this year too. So yeah, a lot of it was just giving him the license to drop in and help us build in possession, but then also when that ball goes forward, go and get yourself in the box. And I think Bradley Sample naturally sat a little bit deeper and kind of helped us with our structure behind the ball. And again, that gave Danny a lot more freedom to just go and kind of roam and again get in the box at times, sometimes to kind of drift out wide and give us wide overloads as well. So yeah, a lot of it was just giving him the freedom and knowing that he has the stamina and the energy to kind of cover the ground and still do his job defensively.
I kind of want to talk to you about your journey to the US, because if you talk to anybody that goes from Europe and comes over to the US, the act of going through like academies and popping around through academies and then doing the college route is something that the US mind just cannot really comprehend, that kind of stuff. So you make your way through the Everton Academy, then you go through Crew, Alexandria, then you end up in Stockport before you come over to play college soccer. What was that youth experience like, popping around from club to club?
Yeah, I guess it's probably quite a normal journey, I think, for a lot of English players. You know, you're trying to you find yourself in an academy setup. I mean, you're quite lucky to land in one of those, but I was fortunate enough to be with Everton for a few years when I was younger. And then, they're constantly looking for the best players in the area. So, when I left Everton, then it was on to Crew. I spent the most time with Crew, and they're, well-renowned academy in the UK. Obviously not a huge club, but produce a lot of professional players. So I was very fortunate there to work under some fantastic coaches. Steve Holland, who was the England assistant manager for the last World Cup, was one of my youth coaches. Ray Walker, who played for Aston Villa, I know. Dario Gradi, who's a famous kind of lower league coach in the UK. And then a couple of younger professional guys who have gone on to have kind of really strong coaching careers now too. So I was very lucky. I don't remember a ton about those training sessions and necessarily, I was, 13, 14 years old. But I do know that I was probably getting a very good education at the time. Yeah, on to Stockport when I was about 16, 17. You're just trying to turn professional. And then when those dreams are dashed, then you start looking for what's next. So for me, it was always going to be, do I play semi-pro? Do I keep trying to crack my way into the professional game in England? Or, I had opportunities to kind of further my education, keep playing soccer in the US. And yeah, that just really appealed to me. I'd always kind of dreamt of coming and living in the US. Didn't know that was going to be a long-term thing, but certainly wanted to try college soccer and yeah, always held on to that dream of playing professionally. So
yeah, it was an exciting time to try and pursue something new.
Well, you mentioned you're breaking into the college soccer scene. You go to the University of Charleston in West Virginia, not South Carolina, but you went Division II and you were an All-American. You were in the national tournament. You won, I think it was the conference championship every single year you were there.
Yeah.
What, comparing it to the academy systems in the England, and then comparing it to, again, college ball, how are they similar? How are they different?
More different in a lot of ways. I think definitely took a little bit of getting used to the short seasons. Certainly took a lot of getting used to just the environment and the weather and the climate and playing on turf every week. I'd never played on turf before, so a lot of things to get used to. But again, I was just at a point in my life. I was 18. I'd kind of gone through the disappointment of not turning pro, so I was just kind of enjoying life, enjoying playing soccer again. All of a sudden had 23 new guys who I lived on campus with and became really good friends with. And it was also just a really exciting time for that program in Charleston. Chad Dernberger was in his, I think, second year as coach, and was on his way to building something really special. And I think you see now the powerhouse that Charleston's become. I'm very proud to say that I was kind of there at the kind of early stages of that. Like you say, we won 4 straight conference championships, had a couple of tournament runs, never got past the Elite Eight. Chris Grassi came in my junior year, took the program even further. And yeah, he ended up not winning a national championship, but he left it in a very good place for Dan Stratford to then come in and win a national championship with Charleston. And I think you look at Chris Grassi's obviously gone and won a national championship with Marshall. Dan Stratford's doing amazing things at West Virginia. The current coach now, Dan Smee in Charleston, has won a national championship, I believe, and they're always there and thereabouts. So, yeah, I think I was, again, just very grateful to kind of be part of the early days of Charleston becoming, the powerhouse that it is now.
I'd say about a year or two ago, I talked to Hugo Faru, now goalkeeper out in Louisville. And when I talked to him about his journey over to the US, he talked about the language barrier of being French and not speaking English. And now he's having to take college classes in English and all this other kind of stuff. Obviously, that's a bigger cultural difference than you coming over with you speaking English, but you are coming from a larger metropolitan area in Liverpool. And then now you're going to a smaller town in West Virginia. Like, what was the culture shock like for you?
It was a little bit of a shock. I mean, like you say, West Virginia is definitely a little different, a little kind of slower paced, but I really liked it. And again, you're on campus, so you're surrounded by your teammates and your friends. So you're just kind of in that little kind of closed off space. So I enjoyed it. I had to get used to kind of going to regular classes again. I hadn't done that for a couple of years. Being 17, 18, doing my apprenticeship with Stockport, I wasn't really doing a ton of schooling. So had to get kind of used to that again. But yeah, overall, it probably sounds, I don't know, maybe a little cliche, but I was just so focused on the soccer side of things. Like school was a little bit secondary to me. And again, I started really enjoying playing again. And just kind of, I don't know, it kind of set me back on my path to trying to be a pro. So, very quickly that became the goal again. And I was having success both as a team, but also individually. So, yeah, it kind of just kept me going.
Kind of speaking on that journey, one thing that the Riverhounds have done better than really anybody else in the USL Championship is bring in college players straight out of college. Do you feel like that's a untapped potential that a lot of other clubs are missing out on?
Yeah, probably. I think everybody has their own way of recruiting and doing things, and to varying degrees of success. And I think if you look at our record, we've always given young players out of college plenty of opportunities to grow. I think sometimes that's probably hindered us. Maybe sometimes early in the season, we're lacking that little bit of experience But I think once you kind of get everybody on the same page, everybody's got to start somewhere. And I think if you look at the growth of the players who have come from college to the Riverhounds, because they're given opportunities to play and they're given opportunities to fail and grow and get better, I think it sets them up in really good stead. And we've even just looking kind of in the past few weeks at our roster and where those guys came from. I mean, Beto Idrach, Charles All, Guillaume Vacta, Bradley Sample. These are all guys we took out of college, and they very quickly became really key parts of our team. So, if you look around the league, there's a lot of players who did go through the college system here in the US. And I think it's just about giving them a chance and letting them prove themselves. And sure, some will work and some won't, but it's worked for us. And I'm sure it's a path we're going to continue to try and use.
Well, both myself and John Morrissey were on the ground in Tulsa the day you guys won the championship. And I took the time to talk to some of the Pittsburgh supporters before the game and just kind of get their thoughts. I mean, some of them had not slept in like 36 hours, and you could tell when you were talking to them. But besides being excited, they had this utmost confidence in not just the club, but also you. One thing that got brought up several times was, Rob was the reason we have the Miracle on the Mon. And they were talking about how there could not be a bigger moment for the club when you were the centerpiece of the biggest moment in the club up to that point. Kind of relive the Miracle on the Mon for the people who maybe aren't Pittsburgh fans, or let them relive this anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't say this lightly because I know everybody has, their favorite memories of soccer. And, when you're reliving your best memories, like everybody has their own memories and they don't want to necessarily hear about everybody else's. But the Miracle on the Mon is seriously just one of those once in a lifetime games. To be part of that, like, it's just an instant. You just know that this was amazing. I mean, we were 3-0 down at halftime to Harrisburg, which is our local rivals, at home. So, pretty bad day at the office for 45 minutes. Mark Steffens, who was our coach at the time, pretty much laid into us at halftime and let us know that it was not acceptable. So, I think going out into the second half, it was just like, let's make sure that this scoreline isn't embarrassing. We grabbed a goal pretty much straight out of the traps. I pulled one back and made a 3-1, but it just felt like every time we scored, Harrisburg went and scored another. So the game, we just couldn't get the game back. So it's 5-3 going into stoppage time. So I think when they made it 5-3 at around about the 85th minute, and that was kind of the dagger. It was like, it's game over now. Like, it's probably done. So 5-3, we're going into stoppage time. I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes go up on the board. We grab one right at the beginning of stoppage time, and we think, okay, maybe we can grab a tie out of this if we're lucky. I was fortunate enough to grab the 5th. So we tied up at 5-5. That alone felt like the miracle. We've got it back. The stadium is rocking. Everybody's super, super excited. And then, we go and grab a 6th, and we take all 3 points out of nowhere. Just, in the space of about 4 minutes, we scored 3 goals, turned the game completely on its head. I think you just knew straight away. So I would recommend anybody just to go and watch those highlights and just see, the press box just shaking, the stadium erupting. And just thankful that people actually stayed in their seats. So I wouldn't have blamed them for going home at halftime, but they stuck around and they were in for a good night.
It's been written about so many times at this point that you can find your favorite article from your favorite person. You can find videos from it. And I'm not a Pittsburgh fan. They're just another club in the USL, but I get goosebumps watching it. Yeah. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I do too. I still get goosebumps. I still watch it every now and again. I still actually, the commentator who used to do our games, his commentary still lives in my head, and I'm like, we still text every now and again about it. So it's usually around that time of year when it comes around. I think it was late May or maybe early June. But whenever the anniversary comes around, the club will tweet something about it. A couple of the journalists will tweet something about it, and then I'll usually get a text from Matt, who is the commentator that day. So it's, like I say, we just kind of relive it every year, and it's just one of those amazing nights that we'll never forget.
And when I mentioned that when I was talking to the Pittsburgh supporters, one thing a few of them said, and there was one person who was, and I'm blanking on his name now, I feel really bad, but he was kind of the head capo for the Steel Army on the day. And one thing he said to me was he knows how not to let the moment get too big. Like, we're so confident because we just know the moment's not going to get too big for them.
Yeah.
And it felt that way. It did not feel like this was the first time that you were a head coach in a final. It felt like you made every correct decision along the way. How anxious were you to make substitutions and make tactical decisions, or did it feel like another match?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I got everything right. I do know we were quite maybe reluctant is the right word, maybe not, but like we didn't make a ton of subs, and it was a lot of it just came down to a little bit of hesitancy and not wanting to lose the rhythm that we had, and probably was a little bit afraid to kind of take a risk that would backfire. So when things work out, hindsight is 2020, right? Like, it looks like we made all the correct decisions. I don't think we did. I think we could have maybe at times in some of those 0-0 games, we could have made changes, and we could have maybe found a way to win those games. But also, what if we had disrupted the rhythm and ended up losing those games? So it looks like in hindsight like we got it all right, but I definitely know that I still have a lot to learn as a coach. The one thing I was trying to be very conscious of, though, was being composed and being calm. I'm a big believer that the head coach's actions and the way that their body language is, that carries over to the players. So we had a lot of big moments, down the stretch. We're playing Indy at that point. Every game felt like a massive game, like all 7 games. So Indy, it was, if we win tonight, we're in the playoffs. Like, that's kind of a huge step, relief. Because if we don't make playoffs tonight at home against Indy, like, we got to go on the road to Monterey, and then all of a sudden, like, then we got to play Phoenix on the last day. They're going to have something to play for. So, it just felt like every game had a lot on the line. And so, yeah, I was just very aware that I needed to remain composed and make sure that the guys knew what their jobs were, knew what to expect from the opposition. And yeah, I want to say it was quite easy because the guys were in a really good headspace. They played well. They got the results that we needed. And that allowed me to, not get too high, not get too low, and just kind of carry them through the end of the season. Again, I know, if and when I'm a head coach in the future, I'm going to have to go through some moments where I need to maybe raise the temperature in the room and get a response out of guys. And but yeah, I definitely think there's always room to just kind of take a breath, compose yourself. And yeah, definitely in those penalty shootouts, in those overtime periods, especially in the final, the last thing you want to see is your coach kind of jumping up and down on the sideline and freaking out and looking like he's panicking. So yeah, it was about staying calm and trying to make the best decisions. And I think sometimes the decision not to make substitutions and just make very small tweaks here and there probably was the right thing to do, because the guys who were out there were doing a fantastic job, and they were fit enough to play long stretches of minutes. So yeah, again, hindsight is 2020, and we won a championship, so everything looks great.
Well, one of the question marks I had during the game was when you took out Augie Williams for Jefferson.
Yep.
And at that point, Augie had looked great. He had missed some chances, yes, but he was getting into good positions. He was linking up play well, and he's just an experienced player, one of the best strikers this league's ever seen. And then come the penalty shootout, who's the very first person to step up? It's the person that you take Augie off for.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most confident penalties you saw on the night.
Mhm.
And that was a real moment for me of like, okay, that worked. Like that, that move immediately paid off in that moment. And yes, it took about 20 minutes to get there, but that was like like I was sweating that one for you.
Yeah. Yeah, again, hindsight's 2020. So if Bertan would have missed, and I'm sure people would have been asking why Augie wasn't on the field. I know Augie was disappointed to come off for that second overtime period. It was just, again, maybe at that point, 7 games in, we did, myself and the other staff, maybe we just felt a little bit more confident to take a slight risk. You're throwing Bertan in cold to a really intense game. But we just felt there's 15 minutes to go. Augie, yeah, he's still got the energy. He can still maybe make something happen. But the game was so stretched at that point. We just felt like there was maybe one opportunity to hit them on the break or catch them in behind. And Bertan, with his pace, maybe just gave us that opportunity. And he actually almost did get in, and they just got enough defenders back just in time to kind of slow him down and stop him getting a shot off. So it was kind of a low risk, potentially high reward situation. Again, you're not having Augie on to take a penalty, but Bertan had taken penalties in the last couple of shootouts that we'd been through, so we were confident having him on. In fact, I think we almost wanted to make sure Bertan was on the field for the penalty shootout. We ended up having Chase Boone take a penalty probably in place of Augie, which again paid off.
Underside the crossbar. Not,
Exactly.
no.
A heart in mouth type of penalty, but yeah, again, I think it wasn't anything that Augie was doing wrong. It was like, okay, let's take a calculated risk here that we think there's maybe 1 or 2 counterattacks left in this game. Maybe we can win it before we get to penalties. And we didn't, but I think everybody was happy come the end of the day. I do remember saying to Augie, while the trophy celebrations were going on, I was like, all right, you got to forgive me now. I know you weren't happy to come off, but you have to forgive me now that we've won a trophy.
Well, so where I sat as this was happening, once it went to penalties, I've said this on the show, I was so confident that you guys were going to win once it went to penalties that I sat myself right in front of the Steel Army because I knew as soon as it was over, everybody was rushing over.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, that is what happened. Eric Dick makes a save as he always does. And from there, everybody converts theirs and everybody comes running over. And to talk about how much it means, the first time that Highmark has ever been sold out was not for a US Open Cup run. It was not for some international friendly. It was for an Eastern Conference championship. It was for the conference title. When a guy who's been around like Augie Williams finally wins the USL trophy, I mean, he was in the Steel Army. Like I have videos of him just like crying.
Yeah.
That's how much it meant to these guys to win. How much did it mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot. Again, it kind of felt like as we were going through, and you never want to count your chickens at all, but it kind of felt like this when we got through the first round against Hartford, and then we got through the second round against Detroit. It was like, and we just kept getting the home games. It was like we may never get a better chance, or at least not in the near future. We've had 3 home games against opponents who we feel that we can beat, and then you just get one shot at Tulsa, who again on their day are a very, very good team and hard to beat, but it's like we just got one shot at it, like let's give it everything. So yeah, it was hard. I mean, it is still hard to put into words, but being able to celebrate down in that corner with the diehard fans that drove their way down to Tulsa was special, and there was just a lot of emotion that day. And a lot of guys will play their whole career and not have a greater moment than this. A lot of guys will play their whole career and never get anywhere near a final. So I think it was just a special day all around, and just memories that we'll be able to keep for a lifetime. And we kind of said before the game too, like this is the last game that this group will ever play together. Whether you make 3 changes in the offseason or 10 changes in the offseason, like this is the last time this group of 23 guys will be together. So let's savor this moment and hopefully go out on a high, which we did.
Well, I have two more questions for you before I let you go, and I really appreciate you taking the time to chat. First, for the Pittsburgh fans who are listening to this, they have a fun off season ahead of them. They get to celebrate the star above the crest. But
Yeah.
what kind of message do you have for them this off season?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be changes as always. I mean, that's the nature of the league, I think, but also the nature of this club in recent years has just been there has been a little bit of turnover to deal with each year, and I think some of that has already come out in the past couple of days. But we'll I don't want to say rebuild. I don't think it's a rebuild. I think there is going to be plenty of guys coming back, plenty of starters coming back. So yeah, I think it's going to be an evolution and. Yeah, we have a trophy and a championship to defend now. So I think that's certainly going to be the mindset going into next year. We obviously finished fourth. I think that's probably the minimum in terms of what we should be aiming for each year, getting that home playoff game. And then yeah, I think once you can maybe get that home playoff game, as we saw this year, things can open up and really kind of play in your favor as long as you give yourself that chance. So yeah, we'll strengthen, we'll get better, and we'll come back in March and be ready to defend that title.
And the last question we ask at the end of every show, and we ask every single guest, when you have time to kind of decompress, kind of chill out, what have you been reading? Has there been a certain album that you've been listening to, or what's been on your TV lately?
Oof. Okay, so I'll go back to front on that one. So TV. We've actually been watching, my wife and I have been watching the Harry Potters all the way through. So we're actually on the fourth one right now. So we're doing that all the way through. It's almost kind of become a little bit of a Christmas tradition. I did just order a book today, and I feel terrible that I can't think now what it's called. It's too late for me to remember. But I think it's like right now it's like I'm trying to do like a lot of kind of leadership books. I've done a few kind of over the past 12 months and just trying to, I've always done a lot of coaching books and a lot of kind of tactical and things like that. But I've really started to realize that a lot of what's needed now from the modern day coaches, those leadership qualities and being able to manage groups and things like that. So I did just order a book and I'm excited to read it, but I can't think of the name off the top of my head. It was recommended to me and it was just like a buy on Amazon straight away. Like I trust the person who recommended it to me. And then musically, I am kind of a podcast guy as of late. So when like my drive to the training center every day, it's usually a podcast. But I would say probably the most recent album I listened to was probably Tame Impala's new album. I'm a big Tame Impala fan, so they had a new album come out a month or two ago, which I've been listening to. So, yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much for the time, Rob. Enjoy Christmas, enjoy the holidays, and enjoy your championship.
Much appreciated, Kayla. Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been fun. Yeah, anytime.
Thank you. And that was Rob Vincent. I mean, what a great interview. That was an absolute blast to talk to. After we got those little technical difficulties, we were all good to go. But no, seriously, that was an absolute blast to talk to him. Lots of fun stuff in there. I think it's so interesting that specifically on the making changes where he felt like he did not get everything right, because when I was watching the games, I only had the one moment of why would you take him off? And that was the Augie Williams move in the final. Because everything else kind of made sense to me. Biasi had been kind of the guy coming off as of late during the final run. Augie, it just didn't feel like the right game to take him off for me, but it worked out. You had Sample for Boone, or was Sample for all, one of the two, Boone for all. I mean, I loved Charles All, so I don't know. It was very interesting. but I thought he made a lot of great moves. But it's really interesting that he didn't. So I guess that's why he's a professional coach. And well, I'm talking about him. Just a lot of really good stuff along the way. So we had him and John Stewart can make you run through. Well, yeah. There's a lot of coaches that we have done interviews with, and I'm like, you could get me to do just about anything. You could probably make me an almost competent footballer at this point. I felt the same way about Scott McKenzie earlier this year, where I was like, I think you could almost make me competent. Like, that's how fired up I am right now. Like, it's very interesting. Let's see. On paper, is the final Lexington versus Tampa? Tampa. That's a good question, actually. Because Tampa with Dom Casciato is buying in all the great League One talent that's ever existed, basically. And I really need this to work for Tampa. I really need this to work for Tampa. Obviously not because I'm a Tampa fan, but in terms of breaking that glass ceiling for League One to championship teams, there's been movement, but it's not as much as it should. And we've been big proponents on the show of League One is not as far away as you think it is. I know a lot of championship fans are like, we have star and they have a number, or their third division, we're second division. It's not as far as you think it is. And we have been screaming that the best players need to be moving up more. And Tampa Bay is letting him do that. And so for me, I really feel that this has to work for Tampa, or we're not going to see fluid movement from League One to the championship for several more years. If this does not work this year, I feel like we're going to see a lot of that market dry up for a while. So working can be a top 4 finish for me. As long as they are competent and they are good, and maybe they are pushing up on that Charleston, on that Louisville, like they're really knocking on that door of those Pittsburghs. Hey, we're in that conversation of teams. I think it'll work. But I need it to happen. Dolabella is going to be such an underrated signing. If somebody's sleeping on Dolabella at this point, I'm just going to say you don't know ball. That's just going to be my just outright answers. You just do not know ball. Really quick, U.S. Open Cup, and the news came out that only the championship teams plus Lexington who made the playoffs are going to be making the U.S. Open Cup. And that's the championship side. And someone correct me. I believe it's also only the playoff teams for League One. Can someone correct me on that, though? But only they are going to be making the U.S. Open Cup this year, in a way to eliminate one round of the U.S. Open Cup because of international duty. I could not hate this more. Okay, let me back up. I think yes, and it's just for the World Cup season and Indy as well. I thought Indy made it the playoffs. Did they not? Anyway, they had. I'm trying to make sure I got this right. I believe that this has a good idea in there, and they accidentally did it. Where if we aren't going to have obligatory pro rel conversation just came up. Go ahead, get those likes up. Hashtag pro rel for USA or something. And I believe that if you make the playoffs, you should enter in at a later stage in the U.S. Open Cup. I think that League One teams who don't make the playoffs should have to qualify for the playoffs through the open qualifiers. I think that USL Championship teams who don't make the playoffs should go in that very first round, or make them open qualified too. I don't care. Make there be consequences for not making the playoffs. I think the fact that there were consequences for not making the playoffs is good. If it wasn't this, where these teams just cannot compete. And the idea is to cut down on the one round. So the World Cup is going on, and they can just say, we're not going to have this match congestion. There's a couple of things here, and I'm going to tinfoil hat just a little bit. If the only reason they would be concerned about match congestion is because MLS teams will be without their best players, and they know they'd be more likely to be beaten because, yes, MLS has better talent than the USL Championship and League One. That comes as a shock to everybody. The Premier League has better talent than the Championship and League One. Wow. Same thing. They would be without their best players, and their best players would be represented at the World Cup. And the Championship and League One in the US would not have that same kind of issue, at least not consistently. That it would bring the talent gap a little closer together, and there'd be more cup sets. That's my tinfoil hat. I think the other side of this is the US Open or the US Soccer Federation is not understanding that the US Open Cup could finally make them more money, because I live about 3 hours away from Atlanta, about the same to Nashville, and I am not going to be able to afford to go watch the World Cup. I'm just not. I will not be able to afford it. There's going to be a lot happening in my life. Like, there's a lot going on there, and just between the travel, and I could stay with my wife's family, but like between the travel and getting the ticket for nosebleeds for something like, how much would I enjoy it? That's not worth it. Meanwhile, Birmingham is hosting an MLS team in the US Open Cup, and tickets are $10. That's a ticket that somebody can afford and say, oh my gosh, hey, you know how we can't afford to go to the World Cup? Guess what? Local team is playing an MLS team right now for 30 times less money, like 30 times less. You can do the same thing. I can go watch good soccer, and it's my professional club, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the way to make the US Open Cup boom. This is the whole point of the World Cup boom. This is why they wanted to have it here, was so fans could go hop on while there's excitement. Why not have the cup, the competition that they are saying, we don't know how to promote this? Just have it. That's the way to promote it. Be the affordable thing in town. Be the affordable thing in town. A $10 ticket to watch Birmingham versus Charlotte, or Birmingham versus Atlanta, or whatever it may be, that would bring in so many more fans to the US Open Cup because they're excited about the World Cup, but they have just given up on that. And I think it's not being able to see the forest through the trees. I think they're getting caught up by the people who line their pocketbooks. That is just my humble opinion. But hey, maybe I'm just getting a little too deep into this. I don't know. I think that's about it for today. There was so much Super League that I wanted to talk today, but I guess I could run over it if I can just pull up my notes really fast, because I closed that up because I pulled up my Rob Vincent notes, and well, here we are. The Super League's been awesome. If you haven't read John's breakdown on his Back Four article, it's really good. John Morrissey, good at his job. I'm trying to get my notes up now, but right now it's just been really fun watching the Super League, because there's just a lot of fun teams where Lexington is just the best team, bar none. And they look like a 4-2-3-1, but then they kind of look like a back three. and they're just so much fun to watch play. And Spokane has been a lot better than I thought they'd be. They lost a lot of their talent this last season, and they just look a lot better than I thought. I've been really impressed with what Spokane is doing. The Carolina Ascent looks like they could finally be alive again, which is nice. Brooklyn, that I can never figure out what I think of Brooklyn because they go from looking really good. I like what I'm seeing from Brianna Norris. Samantha Kroger looks great on the left hand side. Rebecca Cook, I like her up top. It's been great to see, but I just don't know what to make of this Brooklyn team. But you have this Carolina Ascent team where they're playing this 4-4-2 where they have Amia Corbin playing as the 10, not too dissimilar to what you see out of Lexington. So that's going to be interesting to see how that transpires. Comment from Frank Dolan of Puerta possibly winning MVP and newcomer of the year. I mean, it's certainly possible. Puerta has been really good. I would not go against what Addie McCain or Amina Ekic are doing right now, personally. But Puerta has been phenomenal. I can see if I can find her stats really fast. Ashlyn Puerta, where are your stats? Where are they? Where are you? Anyway, I'll find them later. But I've just been so impressed. Sporting Jacks is just so much better than I thought. And we saw it early on with this team where they were really attacking and they were getting into the box and they were really just overloading defenses. I mean, if you look at their average positioning, they are really going in here with a 3-2-5. Like that is their average position is a 3-2-5. They're getting into the opponent's final third and they are just laying down shop, and they killed the Sun 3-0. It has been unbelievable to watch them, where I can't remember off the top of my head right now is Sporting Jacks and Lexington have played yet. But the next time they do play needs to be just like must watch television. I'm going to check that really fast. I don't think they have played yet. That's just going to be appointment television. I think their first time playing each other is February 21st. Oh, nope, just kidding. They played on Halloween where Lexington won 4-2, obviously, because Jacksonville just scores, and so does Lexington. Lexington scores all time. Hissy also has an argument for MVP. She's been really good. She has also been extremely good. I've been also impressed with what Hissy was doing. She has not been getting enough love up in Spokane. I can't remember if she won golden or won MVP or best golden. Oh my gosh, best goalkeeper. But that's interesting. I'm trying to think of any other news, people in the chat. You guys got anything for me? I know on the Birmingham side, we have a signing coming apparently from this guy named Cole that everybody Golden Glove. Thank you, John. Where everybody is in this guy's thing of saying it's happening, and everybody's saying goodness, thank goodness, good riddance. Who's his agent who keeps getting him jobs, which that's nice to see about a player joining your club. Oh, and Eric Dick is joining the Indy 11, returning to the Indy 11. He was an academy or a local product, and he returns there. So that's really cool for him to be able to kind of go back home and do it again, where Schultz is moving on, is not going back on loan. They had what's his name? Was it Cook, who was decent in goal, but Eric Dick is a massive upgrade. So that should be really fun to see. I'm going to be interested to see which version of Eric Dick the Indy gets. Do they get regular season Eric Dick from 2025, or do they get playoffs Eric Dick? Because if Indy is expecting Eric Dick to claim like 5 to 10 balls every single game from crosses, that is just not sustainable. It's not sustainable for any goalkeeper. That's like non-league stuff in England where they are just dumping balls into the box and just praying that some like 6'5" striker gets on the end of it. Like that is just not serious. That is just not serious stuff. But if they're expecting Eric Dick to kind of be what he was, hey, be a good shot stopper, get a little bit onto the ball, and that's about it. I'm about that. I'm really about that. I would really enjoy that. We got Frank Dolan says P Hop signed someone who was good. I can't remember who it was. I'm assuming you mean Breck Evans. Yes, Breck Evans. Yeah, Breck Evans is a great signing. Disappointed for kind of disappointing on the side of Greenville, but great for Portland. They are just building up the roster like crazy. And Ford Masson signed Mark Steckbers, which is a great signing for Ford Masson. Like instantly going to be one of the best fullbacks in the league, and it's not close. So good for Mark Steckbers. Happy for him. Good to see him playing again. But I'm not going to talk anymore. We have been doing this for hour and 7 minutes solo, except for that 20-minute interview with Rob Vincent, which was once again fantastic. So I will go ahead and end it there. No one should ever have to listen to me talk this long, and I'm so sorry to the people that did. But seriously, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. And for the first and final time tonight, here's out.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show.
The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see everyone again next time.